I'll be back. Imagine a dark theater in 1984 where three simple words became a haunting cinematic oath that changed everything. This is the legend of James Cameron's raw 1984 masterpiece, the gritty fever dream we call The Terminator. It begins with Sarah Connor, an innocent woman whose life becomes the target of a cold, metallic predator sent to erase her. Chasing her is a ruthless, chrome-boned assassin wearing Arnold Schwarzenegger's face, a machine that simply does not know how to stop. Her only hope is Kyle Reese, a desperate soldier who traveled through the fires of time just to hold her hand through the nightmare. It was a frantic, blood-slicked sprint for the survival of the human race, a chase film so visceral it forced Hollywood to change. Long before it was a global empire, this film was a scrappy outcast fueled by a young filmmaker's obsession and terrifying intensity. Beneath the chrome surface lay the heart of a true underdog story born from the shadows and the magnetic pull of a star. The shocking truth is that the film's most iconic moments were often happy accidents born from the desperation of being completely broke. Tonight, we are peeling back the skin on 15 disturbing facts you never knew about the Terminator, from casting mistakes to set chaos. We're uncovering the scars left behind by a production that nearly collapsed under its own weight, revealing the DNA of a titan. If you find yourself drawn to the tragic beauty and hidden history of Hollywood's golden age of grit, join our inner circle. Press that like button and subscribe to hear the whispers of the past every single week. Now let's begin with number 15. A disastrous finale was left on the cutting room floor because the acting was a total, unwatchable train wreck. The Terminator's conclusion was almost a complete catastrophe, not because of the pacing, but because the performances were painfully amateur and stiff. In the original vision, we didn't just see Sarah driving toward the storm. There was a final chilling glimpse into the factory's ruins. Two corporate suits were supposed to sift through the smoldering wreckage, casually tossing aside the remains of the future like common trash. What is this strange computer chip? I have never seen anything like this on the market before. Have you? Maybe some experimental tech from overseas. Just get it down to research and development first thing on Monday morning, okay? Then the camera would linger on the Cyberdyne Systems logo, revealing the source of the apocalypse years before the sequel arrived. I need the truth about how Skynet was born, who is the ghost in the machine responsible. The man pulling the strings, the one truly responsible for it all, is Miles Bennett Dyson. So why was this scene buried? The film's financiers forced Cameron to cast their inexperienced friends instead of actual professional actors. When Cameron saw the footage, it was so wooden and lifeless, it threatened to suck the soul out of the finale. The stiff robotic acting, and not the good kind, killed the emotional high of the film's final moments instantly. Cameron did what every creator dreams of when a suit meddles with their art. He took a blade and cut them out. It was a silent act of defiance that saved the franchise, leaving a blank canvas for the mythology to grow later. Coming in at 14, the liquid nightmare we met in the 90s was actually supposed to haunt the original 1984 film. If you thought the T-1000 was a fresh idea for the sequel, think again. That shape-shifting ghost was lurking there. In his first dark visions, Cameron didn't want a lone killer. He imagined a duo of death coming from the future. He wanted the hulking skeleton we recognize, but also a second, more fluid assassin made entirely of sentient, shape-shifting liquid metal. This thing was meant to slide through steel bars and morph its limbs into jagged blades, a silent shadow that could become anyone. Every terrifying trick you saw in the sequel was originally meant to be Sarah Connor's first nightmare. But the 1984 budget was a hollow shell, and the technology to make metal bleed simply didn't exist yet. Any attempt back then would have looked like a sad, glitching toy rather than a lethal, futuristic executioner from the dark. Cameron had to kill his darlings, shelving the liquid metal concept to focus on the raw, practical grit of the T-800. He hid his grandest vision away in a drawer, waiting for the world to catch up to the horror. Years later, with the pockets of a king and the tools of a god, he resurrected that silver demon. That liquid ghost was the villain the 80s couldn't afford to see, a lingering shadow finally stepping into the light of day. Terminator 2 feels like a massive evolution because it truly is the culmination of a dream deferred by a lack of coin. He was just biding his time, waiting for the silicon and the checks to finally match his dark imagination. Number 13 brings us to a casting twist that changed everything the moment the machine finally found its cold soul. Imagine a world where Schwarzenegger was the trembling, battle-scarred human soldier and someone else was the cold-eyed metallic killer. The studio initially pushed for Arnold to play the hero Kyle Reese, but when he sat with Cameron, something shifted forever. He mapped out the machine's cold rhythm, how it scans a target, how it reloads with sightless precision, never once glancing at the steel. He was choreographing a cyborg over appetizers. By the time lunch ended, Cameron's vision had shifted completely. Strange thing was entering that meeting, nobody expected a total overhaul. The title role wasn't even on the table, but there they sat, both thinking the exact same thing. Maintaining a polite front since they were strangers, neither dare mentioning the elephant in the room. Then, they both told their teams it's Arnold. Michael Biehn took the hero's path while Arnold became the T-800. The work began. Folks claimed playing a machine was easy, but they weren't there. He spent weeks in the trenches, drilling with experts until his muscle memory was flawless, hitting every reload with terrifying clockwork consistency. He learned to fire ambidextrously without a single blink, his gaze remaining a cold, empty void even as lead tore through the air. He rehearsed 50 times before the lights even hit him. Cameron caught every detail lingering on Arnold's hands. Draw, fire, reload, no air, no wasted effort. That's why it still haunts us. The 12-gauge autoloader. Italian-made, pump or automatic. The 45 long slide fitted with a laser sight. Fresh arrivals, real quality. The skin looked human, but the soul inside was nothing but a cold, hard code. One meal flipped the script. Weeks of obsession birthed a legend. Number 12. The lawsuits hit before the sequels did, before it was a billion-dollar empire. It nearly died in a courtroom. Sci-fi giant Harlan Ellison, known for his temper as much as his talent, saw the film and instantly smelled blood. He swore Cameron had stolen his vision. From two 60s-era episodes of The Outer Limits, Soldier and Demon with a Glass Hand, both followed soldiers. Cast back through the decades, Ellison knew this was no accident. He claimed that during an interview, when asked where the idea for the Terminator originated, the director's answer was chillingly blunt. I just stole from The Outer Limits. Cameron, however, always insisted the nightmare was his own. A chrome skeleton dragging itself from the flames, but Ellison brought his lawyers to the fight. The suits crunched the numbers, weighing a long legal war against a quick payoff, and took the easy way out. Ellison walked away with cash and, crucially, a screen credit. Watch the later releases and you'll find a quiet nod thanking Harlan Ellison for his contribution. Cameron was furious, but the higher-ups weren't looking for a brawl with sci-fi's most aggressive legal shark. Thus, the film that turned Arnold into a global icon arrived with a footnote and a payoff. Number 11, the machine stayed silent. That was the brilliance. For such a massive shadow, he barely uttered a word. He didn't waste breath, if machines even breathe at all. Throughout the entire runtime, his dialogue is shockingly sparse. No grand monologues, no explaining the master plan, just cold binary phrases spat out like, raw data, Sarah Connor, yes. Cameron stripped the script back by design. Arnold's accent was heavy, and they realized that silence made the machine feel more lethal. You don't need an explanation or an argument from a killer. You want it calculating, aiming, and destroying. So rather than hiding his voice, Cameron weaponized the quiet. The machine only opens its mouth for data, entry, or to deliver that one line that would echo through history. Somewhere between, "Nice night for a walk," and "I'll be back," Arnold crafted an unforgettable legacy with 80 words. Powerful for a man whose only directions were to stare and kill. Number 10, the script's price. $1. Before the fame, John wasn't royalty. He was just a guy getting canned from low-budget sequels like Piranha 2. Broke and desperate, he clutched a script nobody wanted to touch. But he had one non-negotiable rule: if this story lived, he had to be the director. Come with me if you want to live. Then came Gale Anne Hurd. She saw the spark, but selling a dark, bloody vision from a rookie was a nightmare. So Cameron made a choice that bordered on madness. He sold her, selling a dream for $1. That was the price. The catch: she produces and he directs a gamble that felt like trading a winning lottery ticket for a bowl of caviar. James Cameron knew that script was just the fuse for a much bigger explosion. If a studio hack took the wheel and crashed it, his mechanical nightmare would end up rotting in a $5 bargain bin. But the gamble paid off. Gale Anne Hurd hunted down the cash while Cameron guarded the vision, forging that strange draft into the cinematic earthquake that defined their careers. That $1 investment eventually birthed a billion-dollar empire of sequels and toys. It launched a million terrible impressions of "Come with me if you want to live." As career bets go, it remains the ultimate high-stakes victory. Number 9. The entire legend crawled out of a cold, metallic hallucination. Skynet, the Resistance, and those time travel loops that still break the internet. It all started with one terrifying, twisted vision inside James Cameron's mind. He was stranded in Europe, shivering with fever in a cramped room after his first film had completely fallen apart. Sick and desperate, Cameron slipped into a vivid waking nightmare, a chrome skeleton scorched by fire dragging its heavy frame. While clutching jagged blades, no skin, no leather, just a grinning skull with burning eyes, steel ribs and knives where fingers should be crawling through the smoke toward him. It was the kind of horror your brain creates to ensure you never sleep again. He gasped awake and sketched the devil. That drawing became the blueprint for the legendary Terminator 800. But Cameron faced a wall. How do you film an apocalypse when your bank account is empty? That is where the genius of time travel saved him. Bring the war to the present. Unleash the machine on the neon streets of 1980s LA. He filmed in real alleys to save money, keeping the future war as a series of bone-chilling, jagged memories. Skulls crushed under heavy treads and blue lasers slicing the dark. A fever gave him the monster. A tiny budget gave him the masterpiece. And his subconscious gave the world a permanent reason to fear the machines. But wait, the story gets even stranger. If these Hollywood secrets are hitting home, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the films that raised us. Tell us in the comments, how did you first encounter the machine? Was it a grainy rental? A late-night broadcast? Or were you in a theater where the speakers shook during that cold-blooded gunshot massacre? Now let us head back to the countdown with number 8. The day Arnold accidentally traumatized an entire restaurant. Movie makeup is haunting on set, but it is pure terror when you forget it is glued to your face and wander into public. During one grueling session, Arnold sat for hours as the team applied the mangled end of the movie Terminator look. His face was shredded steel, peeked through his jaw, and one eye was a hollow, glowing pit of red fire and burnt flesh. He looked like he had lost a fight with a hydraulic press. Then, with cameras paused and hunger hitting, he went for lunch. He did not remove a single stitch of gore. Imagine sitting in a quiet Los Angeles cafe in 1984. When in walks a massive figure with half a face exposed, skull plating, looking like he just crawled out of a furnace, and took a wrong turn at the hospital. The room went cold. Forks stopped midair. You know that heavy silence when something truly wrong happens and everyone looks away. Multiply that by 10. Arnold, meanwhile, was just trying to order a burger. For the crew, this was just Tuesday. For those diners, it was a moment to reconsider every life choice they had ever made. Somewhere, someone still tells the tale of the day a half-robot walked in for a sandwich and nobody gave them a warning. Honestly, that is the ultimate proof of the craft. Stan Winston's team built a demon so convincing it induced panic. Without even trying, no music, no chase, just a monster ordering a meal while a room full of people wondered if they were about to die. Number 7. The Wall of Silence. Arnold refused to make friends with his co-stars for one very chilling reason. He was not an ego-driven method actor, but he did make one cold, calculated decision. Never bond with the people you are supposed to hunt. Throughout the shoot, Schwarzenegger deliberately built a wall between Stan Winston, himself, and Linda Hamilton or Michael Biehn. No shared jokes, no trailer hangouts, just a heavy, lingering distance. The logic was lethal. If Sarah and Reese felt like a team and he felt like a ghost, that isolation would bleed through the lens. The machine had to be a foreign object, a glitch in their reality that did not belong in their world. While the leads developed a natural bond, Arnold watched from the outside. He was not being cruel, he was being absent. He stayed just far enough away so that when he stepped onto the set in full gear, he did not feel like a friend in a costume. He felt like the stranger from the shadows finally coming to take their lives. You can feel that friction in every frame of the film. Even in their shared scenes, the Terminator feels like it is moving through a different, darker dimension. It was a solitary one-machine war against the entire human race, slicing through their dreams like they were mere shadows. At number 6, Michael Biehn almost lost Reese to a deep Southern drawl. Biehn nearly saw the role of Kyle Reese vanish over something far from the future, a thick, heavy Southern twang. I traveled through the ages for you, Sarah. I love you. I always have. During his first reading, Biehn was fresh from a theater run of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and That thick Tennessee accent was still haunting his speech. The producers heard it and felt a chill. Kyle Reese wasn't meant to sound like he just stepped off a porch in the Deep South. He's from a broken tongue era where nations' maps and accents have been turned to ash. Giving him a distinct regional voice would make the apocalypse feel tiny. Though they loved his fire, they said no. Biehn's agent realized exactly what occurred and called to clarify. The voice was for a play. He could shed it. They invited him back this time using his real voice. No drawl, no South, just the sharp, desperate tone we know from the film. This was a brush with legend. Sarah Connor raised her boy to battle, to lead, to survive since he was small. That second reading struck home. Instead of sounding like a man from the valley, Reese sounded like a survivor raised in a bunker, hearing broken tapes of how humanity once spoke. There is a haunting quality to him that works, all because they made certain he didn't sound like a ghost from a lonely country ballad. Number 5. Lance Henriksen invaded a studio session as the Machine. Before Arnold arrived, the killer was nearly a lean phantom named Lance Henriksen. Truly, James Cameron first envisioned a different kind of monster, not a massive titan, but a man who could disappear. A face that could melt into a crowd without being noticed until the blood spilled. Henriksen. Gaunt, fierce, and chilling even in a grin, he embodied that vision entirely. So when the time came to sell the script to the money men, Cameron and Henriksen staged a terrifying performance. For one meeting, Henriksen arrived in costume, a leather shroud, a hollow gaze, silver foil on his teeth, and eyes that froze. Souls. He came early, forced his way inside without a word, and sat silently, just staring at the suits. By the moment Cameron entered, the financiers were shaking, mesmerized by this eerie, broken-looking soul who had violated their space. No talk needed. The truth was obvious. This was the heart of the film. He seemed like a junkie on PCP. Broken bones wouldn't slow him down for hours. I knew a man once. You see this rap? Yes, I thank you. That dark theater trick proved to the studio that this machine was more than just a cheap costume. Later once, Arnold was signed and the look shifted. Henriksen took the role of Detective Vukovic instead. But that single day, he marched into that room like a soulless killer. Well, that's what truly got the movie funded. At number 4, James Cameron was lurking in the sound. Even when he is off camera, his presence lingers. And you hear him truly. In this classic, Cameron plays 2 secret roles as unseen background voices. No big credit, no face, just hidden sonic secrets buried in the film. Sarah's cruel date, who stands her up at the Gesundheitsamt. Start of the story. That voice on the tape. Yes, that is James Cameron. Hello, Sarah. It is Dan Morsky. Look, a thing came up and it seems I cannot make it tonight. I simply cannot. Avoid it. Listen, I'm truly sorry. I will pay you back soon. I will call in a day. Okay? Sorry. Bye. That hidden manager at the Tiki Motel complaining through the wood when Reese gets a room. That is also Cameron. I am coming. We require a room. Very well. Is there a room with a stove? Tiny budgets mean using whoever is around. And whoever was around turned out to be the man writing and calling the shots. Need a sound. Take the director. Need another. Shout, use him again. It was 1984, the cinematic version of your father playing every part in a home video. So while Sarah's world is crumbling, those ghostly voices making her evening a tragedy belong to the very man who put her in the path of death. James Cameron actually calls to ditch her, then scripts a bonsonese metal monster to end her life. It is a subtle secret, but once you hear the truth, you cannot forget it. The man who would eventually drop $200 million on Titanic began by doing free voice work for his own film just to save a few dollars. At number 3, The Chilling Mist was actually poison, one of the grittiest. The cameras started rolling not on a polished set, but amidst the chemical stench of a citywide extermination. Picture Sarah and Reese emerging from beneath a concrete overpass, swallowed by a thick, haunting vapor. It was the kind of ghostly atmosphere a director would pray for, heavy, silent, and deeply unsettling. He wanted a world that felt strangled by doom, yet that mist wasn't movie magic, it was pure insecticide blanketing Los Angeles. That fog was actually poison hanging in the lungs of the crew, who just shrugged and kept the film running. Visually, it was a masterstroke, drenching the scene in a nauseating post-apocalyptic rot. Long before the machines rose, the very air was already trying to choke the life out of our heroes. Their health was the price paid for that perfect shot, a poisoned future captured by literal poison. They stole that haunting aesthetic right from the streets, courtesy of the city's extermination department. This production wasn't just a movie, it was a high-stakes heist bleeding with raw, desperate energy. There were no trailers or closed-off boulevards, just the cold, hard reality of filming in the shadows. It played out like a low-budget robbery with world-class stunts fueled by a clock that never stopped ticking. James Cameron was a man possessed, wringing every cent out of a shoestring budget through pure grit-teeth filmmaking. They were ghosts in the night, haunting real alleys and vanishing before the police could even pull their sirens. Look closely at the background. Those aren't actors, just ordinary citizens caught in the crossfire of a secret production. They became legends of sci-fi history without ever knowing a camera was watching their every move. Every midnight street corner and high-speed drive-by crackled with the electric tension of a crew breaking the law. With the clock winding down to the premiere, Cameron realized a final piece of the puzzle was still missing. He needed the machine to crush a station wagon, but the bank was empty and time had finally run out. So he and Arnold grabbed a single camera and a car, pulling off the shot in a frantic 2-hour blur. Cameron covered the costs out of his own pocket, operating without permission. Just move, shoot, and run. The heavy gear was anchored to the ground, a static weight that couldn't match the speed he envisioned. Since the car couldn't race, they cheated the eye by dragging the entire world behind it instead. Arnold even kept a change of clothes ready, prepared to play the innocent tourist if the law showed up. This act first, apologize later spirit became the very heartbeat of the entire film. You don't see polished sets, you see the filth and shadows of a Los Angeles that actually breathes. The city feels cold and uncaring, oblivious to the metal monster stalking through its neon-lit veins. That unpolished, dangerous edge is precisely why the film still haunts our dreams 40 years later. Finally, the most chilling detail, 3 iconic words that nearly vanished into the cutting room floor. All the lawsuits and near arrests wouldn't matter if one tiny ego clash hadn't tipped in the director's favor. The most legendary quote in cinema history almost sounded like a stiff lesson from a textbook. When Arnold first laid eyes on the script's promise to return, he was far from impressed. The short "I'll" felt clunky in his mouth. He fought for a formal, robotic "I will" instead. Desperate to please his vocal coach, he begged Cameron to let him deliver the line with more precision. But Cameron was iron-willed, demanding the punchy, casual rhythm of a man who didn't care about grammar. A formal delivery sounded like a machine at a wedding, not a killer about to drive through a precinct wall. The tension on set was thick as they cycled through every possible way to say those 3 fateful words. Finally, the machine stands at the police desk, coldly calculating the destruction he is about to unleash. He utters the promise like a death sentence, then proceeds to tear the entire station to pieces. In that moment, no one realized those 3 words would become the shadow that followed Arnold forever. It is the magic of the movies when a character strikes a chord so deep it resonates for generations. I will be back. The real shock was how the world fell in love with a cold-blooded killing machine. From late-night television to the mundane halls of the DM5, that echo has lasted 4 decades. Slip into that unmistakable accent today and every person in the room knows the nightmare you are summoning. All because one director refused to give up on a single contraction. Sometimes the smallest battle defines a legacy. The lights flicker and fade, leaving only the scent of cold iron. Here are 15 secrets about the 80s classic that evolved into a global empire, forever scarring our collective memory. Which revelation broke you? Was it that haunting lost Cyberdyne footage? Arnold nearly playing the sacrificial hero, or the legal war that almost killed the legend? Pour your heart out in the comment section. If this journey to 1984 felt like uncovering a buried treasure, please like, subscribe, and join our deep dive into the stories. And that truly defined who we are. Until we meet again in the dark, keep the flame alive. Can the past be rewritten? This is Remember When. He needed the machine to crush a station wagon, but the bank was empty and time had finally run out. So he and Arnold grabbed a single camera and a car, pulling off the shot in a frantic 2-hour blur. Cameron covered the costs out of his own pocket, operating without permission. Just move, shoot, and run. The heavy gear was anchored to the ground, a static weight that couldn't match the speed he envisioned. Since the car couldn't race, they cheated the eye by dragging the entire world behind it instead. Arnold even kept a change of clothes ready, prepared to play the innocent tourist if the law showed up. This act first, apologize later spirit became the very heartbeat of the entire film. You don't see polished sets, you see the filth and shadows of a Los Angeles that actually breathes. The city feels cold and uncaring, oblivious to the metal monster stalking through its neon-lit veins. That unpolished, dangerous edge is precisely why the film still haunts our dreams 40 years later. Finally, the most chilling detail, 3 iconic words that nearly vanished into the cutting room floor. All the lawsuits and near arrests wouldn't matter if one tiny ego clash hadn't tipped in the director's favor. The most legendary quote in cinema history almost sounded like a stiff lesson from a textbook. When Arnold first laid eyes on the script's promise to return, he was far from impressed. The short "I'll" felt clunky in his mouth. He fought for a formal robotic "I will" instead. Desperate to please his vocal coach, he begged Cameron to let him deliver the line with more precision. But Cameron was iron-willed, demanding the punchy, casual rhythm of a man who didn't care about grammar. A formal delivery sounded like a machine at a wedding, not a killer about to drive through a precinct wall. The tension on set was thick as they cycled through every possible way to say those 3 fateful words. Finally, the machine stands at the police desk, coldly calculating the destruction he is about to unleash. He utters the promise like a death sentence, then proceeds to tear the entire station to pieces. In that moment, no one realized those 3 words would become the shadow that followed Arnold forever. It is the magic of the movies when a character strikes a chord so deep it resonates for generations. I will be back. The real shock was how the world fell in love with a cold-blooded killing machine. From late-night television to the mundane halls of the DM5, that echo has lasted 4 decades. Slip into that unmistakable accent today and every person in the room knows the nightmare you are summoning. All because one director refused to give up on a single contraction. Sometimes the smallest battle defines a legacy. The lights flicker and fade, leaving only the scent of cold iron. Here are 15 secrets about the 80s classic that evolved into a global empire, forever scarring our collective memory. Which revelation broke you? Was it that haunting lost Cyberdyne footage?